All right, Jamie, thank you. I think we'll get started now. And if people come in, we're not going to punish the punctual.
Okay, I think that's great.
All right. So thank you all for being here. Glad to have you with us. We're going to talk about a few things today, the major things, a brief synopsis of what's going on in the workforce, because what's happening there is impacting you and I and all of us in our businesses today. We are going to introduce a hiring matrix, and it's a 10-point process that will guarantee the improvement in the quality of your hires and retention. In addition, we'll talk about identifying a perfect candidate, the 5 A's of great employees today. We're going to talk a little bit about what's in it for them, the employee value proposition, top mistakes to avoid in hiring, and we'll definitely have time regardless for Q&A. So that's our plan for today. And Jamie, why don't you take it away from here?
All right, I get the pleasure of introducing Eric to everybody. Eric Swanson is acknowledged as a leading expert on leadership and workforce. His work with business throughout North America has led to improved performance, stronger employee engagement, and greater customer satisfaction. His first book, Managing People in the 21st Century, was published in 2004 and was updated 16 years later in March 2020. His book, The 5 A's of Great Employees, was published in 2016 and argues that experience and education have become far less important in today's workforce than intangible attributes. A sought-after speaker, he speaks frequently to organizations and conferences on topics ranging from leadership and management to workforce trends and issues. He has conducted seminars for professional organizations and is a popular keynote speaker at conferences and conventions. In addition to his speaking and writing, Eric oversees 2 companies, Tanzanite Leadership Development and Symmetry HR Outsourcing. Since 2003, these brands have provided leadership training and human resource oversight for more than 300 businesses and nearly 30,000 client employees. These client businesses represent virtually every industry and range from startups to major organizations. He has managed hundreds of employees and interviewed thousands of job candidates in his career. Prior to launching his own business, Eric had a 17-year corporate career with 2 major businesses, where he worked in sales, marketing, training, and senior management. He was born in Los Angeles and grew up in Arcadia, California. An Eagle Scout, he graduated from the University of Pacific, where he majored in English and communications and was the student body president as well. His newest book, Weaknesses, will be published in 2022. Eric, I think the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you all for being here today. Glad to have you with us. If you're looking for a way to build a business that runs without you, or a department that can allow you to work more on your job instead of in it, or it allows you to build a team of managers that help you create a self-managing business where you're able to attract and hire and train top talent to be high performers, then Tanzanite can help you, and we make it easy to find out. Today, we've set up a special business review along with a free consultation where one of our specialists, or maybe even me, will review your business, your HR, your leadership situation, and we'll identify where you're at, where you want to go, and give you concrete solutions to help you get there on the spot. It'll give you clarity, confidence, and direction starting today. It will help you eliminate the blind spots and turn your job from one that might be hard, annoying, lame, or frustrating into one that's more enjoyable and lucrative and fun. So if you're looking for a way to simplify your business and have a business and team that can run without you, then please book your free consultation now. Hey, Jamie, can you throw that link up on the chat?
I'll do that right now for you, Eric.
Thanks, Jamie. You can do that at tanzaniteleadership.com/strategy. Go to that link, open up the window, fill in your information, and schedule your time. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get to it. So it's really hard out there for hiring managers, business owners, CEOs, and leaders of all kind. And it's really hard right now, and it's not going to change. So let's talk about a couple of things that are impacting the workforce that are ultimately going to be impacting you. First of all, we're talking about 2 different workforces out there right now. those that are client and customer facing. So when I talk about that, I think of our clients in the hospitality business, like restaurant chains, hotels, private clubs, banks with tellers, credit unions with tellers, things like that, that are client and customer facing. And then broadly speaking, the other half of it is office workers, people who can primarily get their jobs done without a lot of contact with the end user or client. And there are significant differences. So some of the advice today is going to be directed at more client-facing organizations and others at office worker organizations. But if you have specific questions that you'd like to hear about your own business or industry, happy to answer those for you in the Q&A. The other thing I got to tell you, and I tell this to all our clients, right now it is an employee's world and we are just living in it. They are dictating when they want to work, who they work for, where they want to work, why they want to work, or if they want to work. And we have to sit back and focus on that because it's not us. And every once in a while, we run into a CEO or a business owner who says, they should be lucky they have a job with me. I guarantee you the employee doesn't feel that way. They feel exactly the opposite. And we have to kind of change attitudes and adapt to what's going on out there because demand fully outweighs supply. And the reason I say that is there are 6.7 million jobs less pre-pandemic than there were. However, there are 5 million more workers than there are jobs available today as well. Meaning we're trying to fill 5 million jobs and we don't know how. Wages are going up significantly, especially among low-wage workers. Low-wage workers have had the luxury of opting to have unemployment rather than their regular job. And why would you go work in a business with the risk of getting COVID and working really hard for less money than you would for accepting a paycheck and not working at all and staying home with your family? Most people are opting that way. Employers' response is to rise and increase wages, especially among low-wage workers. This is happening. And so what we're seeing is all sorts of crazy things. We have clients in Florida. The McDonald's restaurant group in Florida are offering employees $200 if they hire and they stay there for 2 months. Now that's for a $13 an hour job. That's a lot of money. Other organizations are offering sign-on bonuses, which are paid immediately, much higher wages. Nationally, a retail job right now averages $21.92 an hour. That's up 8% from the beginning of the year. Hospitality wages now at $18.23 an hour. And I can tell you it's a big issue in hospitality. And think of hotels. Hotels in Hawaii, which is booming in terms of vacation right now, are only 40 to 60% full. And I've talked to operators of restaurants in Hawaii, and the reason is they can't find enough people to clean hotel rooms. So people are willing not to work rather than having to clean hotel rooms for a low wage. So as a result, hotels can't fully open, they can't fully realize all their profit margins, and that becomes a problem. Their response is to increase wages. Other businesses are very fearful because as they raise wages, the concern is going to be once they get up here, we can never lower them again, which is true. Once you give employees something, it is extremely hard to give away. So there's a lot of caution as well, but other people say we have to hire people, so we need to pay more. And then boomers are retiring, and I'll talk about that in a second. I want to give you a bonus tip real quick. If you hired anybody within the last year and onboarded them, do it all over again. With this crazy year, 16 months we've had, people forgot their onboarding. Or if you brought them in the office for 2 days and they've been working remotely for the last year, they don't remember the office. It's gone right by them. A lot of employees who have been hired in the last year are leaving their jobs because they're not aligned to the culture of the organization. So some keys for you to understanding the job market. Again, unemployment benefits exceed minimum wage, especially in the low minimum wage states, mostly in the South and the Midwest. The lack of childcare and schools being open is still impacting a lot of people. Now, the Delta variant notwithstanding, What we expect around Labor Day to the mid-September is unemployment benefits are going to expire. Federal unemployment benefits are going to expire. So people are going to need to find jobs. And hopefully schools will be reopening in person, and we know what that's like. But those two factors are going to create a momentum for more people entering the workforce. So the stay-at-home parent who's been with their kids for the last year, once those kids go to school, they're going to be able and willing to work. Once federal employment runs out, people are now going to have no choice but to go to work. But they're going to be pickier about what they do. And we got to know that. There still is an ongoing fear of COVID exposure at work. A lot of people have not strayed very far from their homes, and they're fearful of going into an office, working in a restaurant or a hotel or a bar, and those things will continue to happen. Further, this whole last 18 months, the pandemic has changed people's motivations. Millennials are leaving their jobs for anything different. People are switching careers like we've never seen before. And there's a lot of people in that segment, millennials and even younger, that say, hey, you only live once, YOLO, and they're going to tour Europe for a year and not go back into the workforce. The number of people working past the age of 67 has dropped. Today, only less than a third of people over 67 are still working. That's a record low. More people are retiring, and that's also evidenced by the fact that nearly 3 million workers over the age of 55 plan on applying for early Social Security. That's twice as many as before. So all of these things are contributing to a much tighter workforce. So 3 essentials for you to recruit today. Number 1, you have to rethink the level of education. I can't tell you the number of clients we have that say we have to have a college degree. And we have one client in Alabama that is a bank, and they require their bank tellers to have college degrees. Their bank tellers over the last 4 years have a turnover rate of 80%. And I said, why do you need a college degree? Well, that's the way we've always done it, was their reply. But the problem is that in today's workforce, the market you're looking for is not there. And quite frankly, if I had a choice, I'd much rather have a high school graduate who scores off the charts when it comes to customer service aptitude than somebody with a college education who's going to work there 6 months and then find another job elsewhere. So rethink it. It's not as important as it used to be. A master's degree, you'd have to explain to me why that's more important now than it was a year ago or 5 years, because it's not really important. Looks good on a resume, but the value to me as an employer is not that high. Stop thinking like HR. If you're in HR, stop thinking like you've been. And if you're not in HR, don't ever get into this whole, we have to do it the way we've always done it. Recruiting is no longer a didactic game. You have to start thinking like marketers. What can we do to attract the best possible employees? What can we do to retain the best possible employees? And it's not a world where you say, you have to do this, or you have to dress like this, or your socks must match. It's not like that at all. It's now, what can we do to create an atmosphere, a culture where you're going to thrive, grow, develop, feel well paid and compensated, and stay. They won't stay forever, but it's better than nothing. One of my favorite charts in the country is unemployment status by education. And I show this to you to emphasize what the market is like out there. So the first line that you see are people who do not have a high school diploma in the United States. And the chart starts off, as you can see, in February of last year when it was a little over 5%. So people who don't have a high school diploma, about 5% last February, popped up to 22% when the pandemic was in full force. And today, in June, the latest numbers we have, it's a little over 10%. So if you do not have a high school diploma in this country, your unemployment rate is about 10%. If you have a high school degree but no college, 7%. If you have some college or an associate's degree, unemployment rate is 5.8%. And if you have a bachelor's degree or higher, it's 3.5%, functionally zero. So when I say rethink your education requirement, do you absolutely have to have that college degree? Or is it great to have somebody who was a high school graduate, no college, but has great customer service skills? You can teach them and have them grow the way you want to. Well, I know what the market is. The market is much more available for people in the second category. So rethink that. I'd like to introduce you now to what we call that Tanzanite hiring matrix. And this is a 10-step process I've built over the last 25 years that has improved the quality of hires in over 170 businesses. And we guarantee it helps to our clients, or we give them refunds. So we know how well it works. Obviously, we're not going to have time to go over every single one of them today. I want to spend some time on a couple of them. So let's do this first. Number one here is define your message. We will talk about that a little bit more. And then your process. Your process should be repeatable. If you have multiple locations or you have multiple departments within one location, who does what? Who is screening resumes? Who is preliminary doing interviews? Who's doing live interviews? What's the process? It should be repeatable. It should be easy to repeat. It takes a little time to set up, but once you do, you've got a system developed to hire more quickly and effectively. Who, not how, we will talk about as well. That's the 5 A's of great employees. And the other one we're going to talk about today is getting the word out, thinking like a marketer, which I alluded to a few minutes ago. You need to understand what to look for in a resume and an application screen. Briefly, all you're looking for is your minimum requirements. You're not trying to find the perfect employee on a resume screen. You're just seeing if they meet your minimum requirements, 2 years of experience, high school degree, college degree, what have you. Next one is initial interviews, questions you ask, questions to avoid, and customized questions. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, can you give me a list of questions to ask in an interview? And unfortunately, I tell people no. It depends on what kind of company you have, what kind of job you're looking for. I certainly am not going to ask the same questions of a server as I would of a PhD candidate applying for a college professorship. So everything needs to be customized. Live interviews, and then a scorecard. And we have customized a scorecard for our, you know what? We've customized a scorecard for people to complete after interviews. Jamie, I was just thinking, do we have a Tanzanite scorecard available for folks? I'm wondering if we could just throw that up there, or a link or something.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'll put that in the link for everybody.
Okay, great. It may be 5 A's scorecard as opposed to Tanzanite. I'm not really sure.
Okay, I think I have the 5 A's. I'll put that in there for everyone.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Number 8 is making a decision. And you want as much information as you can, but at the end of the day, it is based on your instincts and your need to hire quickly. You have to make a decision ultimately quickly. Onboarding has to be organizationally and nationally rethought, especially in a world of remote and hybrid work. And then if you fail fast. And I'll give you a quick story. I don't know if any of you have dated before. I spent a lot of years dating, and things don't get better over time. So if you're starting to see somebody and things aren't very good, trust me on this, it's never going to get better. The same thing applies to an employee, okay? If you have issues with an employee in the first few months, they're never going to get better. And one of the tenets of effective hiring is knowing when you failed. I think I'm one of the greatest interviewers of people ever and selectors of talent. But I fail 25 to 30% of the time. The key to it is to know it and excise that problem really fast. So I want to focus on 3 of these 10 things in the matrix. So let's talk about that first, on how to identify your perfect candidate. And the book I'm referring to is the 5 A's of Great Employees. It's a brilliant book. The reason I say it's a brilliant book is because I wrote it, okay? But I spent a lot of years interviewing and managing people in the corporate environment, now in my own business. And here's what I know. Ability, which is experience and education, is completely overrated. Why does a business say we need 7 years of experience doing this? Why not 2? Why not 3? Why not 4? Too often, people will say, well, that's the way we've always done it. That's nonsense. You have to rethink that. There are people in professions who move up very quickly through the ranks, depending on how quickly a company grows, what segment grows the fastest, but it's not as essential as it used to be. If you have a job that requires a certification, let's say a CPA, I understand that. But if you're hiring for an accounting manager Why does 7 years of experience mean more than 4 or 3? Because somebody may have less experience, come less expensively, and that might be the person who you can control, you can develop, you can train, all of those things. You know, the reason everybody wants experience is so they don't have to train people, okay? It's ludicrous. You're going to have to train people no matter what. And in a world where everything is changing, software, programs, customers, business models, careers are going to be constant training and retraining, which leads me into a couple of the other ones. Agility is much more important today than ever. You want people who are flexible, who can go with the flow, who can make decisions quickly. And when things change, that person is not the person who says, oh no, not another change. They say, okay, let's pull up our sleeves and figure out how to make this work. That's agility. Attitude. I've been in this game for 30 years, and the one thing in leadership I can tell you, I don't know how to manage a bad attitude. The only thing you can do with a bad attitude is fire a bad attitude. So that means you better hire a really good attitude. And there's a number of techniques to ask questions and find out ways where a person generally has a positive attitude. Next is aptitude, and I kind of alluded to this a moment ago. This is the ability to learn quickly, the desire to learn, and that person is not fearful of learning. Got to have that. People have to be able to. If you're hiring an IT pro, of course you want somebody who knows IT, but you want them to be able to learn new techniques, software programs, technology very quickly. It's not what they knew, it's what they need to know in the future that matters more in today's world. And then finally, alignment. And by alignment, I mean, are they aligned with your culture, with your mission, with your vision, with your values? If they're not, they're never going to be the employee you need. If they're not, they're in it for a paycheck, and that is not the employee you need. So those are the categories of a perfect candidate. And all 5 of the A's can be customized not only for your own business, but for each category of employee you have, because it's different for every employee, every industry, and every business. So that's the 5 A's. Then in terms of thinking like a marketer, you start thinking in a different way. You think about not what we do, but what you get as being an employee. What's in it for them? In marketing, they call it a value proposition. And that refers to the value a business promises to deliver if you buy their product. Whether you're buying a retailer, or you're going to a restaurant, or you're getting a tax return filed. That's the value proposition. And it's up to the customer to determine if the price is worth it. The same thing works in recruiting. An employee value proposition refers to the value a company promises to deliver candidates if they decide to work there. So what's in it for them? It's a different scenario. And this tells a candidate the reasons why you and your company are best suited for that person. It's not we offer this and we'll have this. It is what's in it for you. I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is a value proposition, should be defined. It should be on your website, your job postings. It should be discussed in your interviews. Every hiring manager should know what it is. It needs to be aligned with, your mission, vision, values, and goals. It's 50% fully of identifying potential talent retention as well. So an employee value proposition. So the major components of an EVP are first, compensation. We can talk about creating a great workplace and development and training and how wonderful we are, but at the end of the day, people want to be paid competitively. They want to feel secure about what they're paid. They want clarity about how they can get more or a promotion. There needs to be pay equity and evaluations and feedback. And to the extent possible, transparency in earnings. I have a client that's a CPA firm, and we do exit interviews for a lot of our clients and analyze them. And one person said, well, I'm not making any money. And meantime, the senior partner makes $2 million a year. And that came as news to the senior partner who makes less than half of that. But without that transparency, everybody filled in their own blanks. That's how gossip starts. So the more you can be transparent about how your business is doing financially and how people make, the easier it is for people to relate to you and be comfortable with what they are earning. Next one is benefits. Big issue now, especially with wellness, mental illness, things like that. You have to have a competitive benefit structure, But understand that every benefit is not of value to every single person. It is a one size fits one operation. So for example, some people want lots of time off. Other people want a great medical dental plan. I find mostly older workers are more interested in medical dental insurance. People in their 20s think they're going to live forever and never get hurt, so they don't think about those things. Inherent in this is the ability for employees to understand what is available to them. Next component, your career. Most people want an opportunity to grow, to move up. They want training and development. They want feedback from their leadership. And then the workplace. People want recognition. They want a manager they can look up to and learn from. Flex is a key word right now in the workplace. Whatever flex means and whatever you can do is really important. Most people want meaningful work. They want what they do to matter. They want the ability to make an impact. And they want clarity. They want to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And finally, culture, which is a bandied about word, but it's really important. A culture is how you do what you do. And people need to understand that. When we do interviews, when people are leaving companies called exit interviews, the number one thing that people miss when they leave a company, they tell us, is the people I worked with. There is no better indicator of culture than the people in your organization who get promoted and hired. That tells you everything you need to know. Let me go into top 5 mistakes I think you need to do to avoid. These are the most common mistakes we see. First one, panic hiring. Oh my gosh, somebody quit. I got to hire somebody as soon as you can. That is a recipe for disaster. If somebody quits, take a deep breath and find the best person you can. Don't dilly-dally about it, but don't hire the first person who comes through. That is a guaranteed way of a failed hire. Next one is over-relying on experience, and I've touched on this a couple of times. Experience is to an extent important, but it's not the most important thing by miles. Once you have reviewed a resume and you say, okay, this person has 3 years of experience, that's the last time you should be thinking about experience. Now I want to think about attitude and aptitude and agility and alignment. Those are the questions I'm going to ask because they met my minimum requirement for experience. Of course, you want to ask them, what do you miss about your old job? What was great was awful. But you don't have to ask about experience anymore. I can't tell you the number of employees who quit within the first 18 months because the job wasn't what they expected it to be. If you don't paint a realistic picture of what you're doing, then you're misleading people and you're going to have high turnover. No matter if you're hiring in restaurants, you're hiring it for law firms, doesn't matter. You're not painting a realistic picture. And a way to avoid having that is not having managers exclusively do the interviews. How about adding some interviews for candidates for people who actually do the job, who have done the job? Have them go out to coffee with a couple of existing employees and have that person say, here's what it's really like. Here's what it's like working for Karen. Here's what it's like doing those things. That paints a realistic picture. You may not get every employee, and some people may be scared away, but I'd rather have them scared away before I make a job offer than 3 months in after I've been working with them and training with them. Along those lines, failing to get a second or third or fourth opinion. When I hire somebody, I have at least 4 of my employees interview those people. I want to know if they're going to work as part of a team. I know that they're going to see things differently than I do, and they're going to be more honest about what is good and what is bad. And most of the time, if they've done that job, they know if the person can do the job better than I can, who's a little bit more removed from those things. So get as many sets of eyes as you can on a candidate. It's essential. And then finally, asking the wrong question. I am mystified by the number of people who don't ask the right questions in an interview. Our studies show that about 77% of hiring managers have never even been trained in how to interview. Well, if they've never been trained, and that's allegedly the most important thing as part of a hiring process, the interview, what are we doing? And there's 2 types of training of interviews. There is the questions legally you can and cannot ask, but then there's the questions you should be asking and not. And it's not these idiotic questions. What are your strengths and weaknesses? I can't think of a worse question to ask. First of all, everybody's prepared for a question like, what are your biggest weaknesses? And having heard that question asked a million times, I can tell you the answer. Well, my weakness is I work too hard and I care too much. It's all BS, isn't it? It's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. If somebody was really honest about it, it might be a helpful question, but it's not. So you have to answer questions, have questions answered that really matter to you. And that doesn't mean just getting a list of questions and asking them. It means really thinking about what you want and matching that to the type of person you're looking for, and then designing questions that way. So those are some of the things I do to find right talent right away. So we kind of covered the state of the workforce and our hiring matrix, that 10-point program that guarantees better hires, how to identify candidates versus or vis-a-vis the 5 A's of great employees, and how to start developing an employee value proposition. And so before we do the question and answer, I hope you've learned some new strategies today. Have you? If you put just one of these in place, what would that be worth to you? If you put all of them in place, what would that be worth to you? You know, the joy of moving from a job or career that may be hard, annoying, lame, or frustrating into a job and career that's more enjoyable, lucrative, and fun is dependent upon the person you bring into work around you. And imagine what that looks like when you have great employees. And remember, great employees always want to be around great employees. So imagine how that would shift the game for you, with less stress or less feeling the weight of having to hire, or I should fire this person, but I don't have anybody in place to replace them. It is absolutely possible to get to there, from there to here. All you need is a proven system that makes it work. And here's what you should know. There's just a handful of these strategies of things that we help our clients implement. And now that we've kind of gone through as much as we could in our time together, you can take everything you learned today and apply it on your own. You can look to get help. But while we're here, I hope I have your permission. It's okay to share a bit more about how we can help you implement these things, because it's pretty simple. How would it shift your business if we could help you do these things, if you could get these things done? And the question you would probably need to ask yourself right now is, do you want our help? And if you don't, no worries. And if you're not sure, no worries. But if the answer is yes, then you're in for something that can transform your business. And we set up, as I mentioned earlier, a special business review along with a free consultation where one of our specialists will help review your processes, your leadership, and your HR. And we'll identify where you're at and where you want to go and give you solutions to help get there sooner rather than later. And this will give you the clarity and confidence and direction starting right away. So you can do that. And Tiffany or Jamie, if you can throw that up on the chat screen, it's tanzaniteleadership.com/strategy. Go there, open the link, open up the window, fill in your information and schedule your time. We'd love to be able to talk to you. It's our pleasure to be able to do so. So having said all of that, let's move to our Q&A and see if anybody has questions. Jamie.
Let me see what kind of questions we have. I also got a few people in the chat that wanted the slides. So I'm going to throw up the slides for everybody to download. And if you're listening to this on the replay, we'll also, somewhere on the replay page, we will throw those slides up for you as well. Let's see. I have, what's the fastest way to hire better?
What's the fastest way to hire better? I would think it's doing a 1 or 2 hour training session with your managers, and just saying, here are the questions to ask and not ask. Here's what we want to look for. Here's a great employee. Do that. If you invest 2 hours of training for your management team, they're going to interview better and hire better. So I'd say that's it.
Okay, great. Let's see. I have a few more. What's the biggest mistake you see managers make when they are interviewing?
I sit in on a lot of interviews as an observer, and there are managers literally who have a printed list of questions, and they ask a question and then they don't listen to the answer because they're so busy focused on what the next question will be. They don't listen. And when people talk, they give you reasons to ask follow-up or what I call counter-punching questions. So for example, somebody might say, yeah, that boss and I didn't see eye to eye on this, so I did that. If you're focused on what the next question is, you're not going to ask the right question, which is, how did you get along with that boss? What is the definition of a good boss for you to work for? And you get that information, and yet now you know exactly what it needs for you to be an effective leader for that person, if they can work for you or not. So don't focus so much on a list of questions as opposed to listening. Most interviewers don't listen well at all.
Okay, Eric, I'm going to throw you a curveball here.
Uh-oh. The first two weren't?
What question have you been asked by a candidate that has impressed you the most? Or what do you like to hear from the candidates?
Yeah, they're both the same thing, and I'm trying to think of the way it's phrased. I personally like to see the candidate having done research on my company. Even if it's a 5-minute internet search, it shows me that they care. And one of the things I try to do in an interview process, do they want a job, or do they want a job working for me or at my company? And when people take the time to ask questions, so I see you have 300 clients and you have 30,000 client employees. What's a really great client for you look like, or how do you get your clients? When somebody says that, it tells me they've done a little bit of research, and that shows me they care. And that's a big step up for me. I want people to care about that. Okay. So one of the questions I asked to elicit that is, what do you know about our company? Or if you're a restaurant, what's your favorite thing on our menu, or something like that.
Okay. Let's see. I have another question. How can we keep employees from leaving?
Good question. There is no simple answer to that, but I would say by and large, people leave for 3 major reasons. They don't feel they're fairly compensated is absolutely number 1. Number 2, they don't feel they're growing or make an impact. So they're stagnant. This is especially true with small and mid-sized companies, where a lot of times there aren't as much opportunities for upward mobility, and we have to create ways. We have a small bank, about 80 employees as a client, and they were losing people because they weren't getting promoted fast enough. So we created promotional opportunities. Bank Teller 1, Bank Teller 2. So if you've been there 6 months and you pass these tests and you get this level of customer service satisfaction, you get a title change and a pay raise. And you can do that throughout an organization. People need to feel they're constantly moving and making an impact. So I would say those are the 2 first things. People need to feel they're fairly compensated. I know a larger bank right now that's losing a lot of employees because there is a competitor bank that's paying 15% more. And all these people are leaving. Now, you have to pay competitively, and people have to know they're being paid competitively. And in today's era, with LinkedIn and Glassdoor and Indeed, and Salary.com, everybody knows how much everybody's getting paid all over the place. So you can't phony that up anymore. Mm-hmm. And most companies, most really good companies, don't wait for the annual performance reviews to increase salaries. If they have a really good employee and they know there's a competitor down the street that's paying more, they'll pop that person right there, because that's still the most important thing to do.
Okay. Eric, do you have time for one more question?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So what kind of extra benefits, or I don't know, I know that you mentioned that we're part of one of the firms that you work with does massages and extra stuff and lunches. Is there any kind of special benefits you think employees like, and perks?
Well, this goes to one of my leadership theories, which is it's not one size fits all anymore. It's one size fits one. You can certainly do a survey and find out what the most popular benefits would be for your employees. But what is important for one person is not so much important for another person. For example, if you could put in a vision care policy, well, the people who have perfect vision don't care about that. A lot of people want extra time off and more time off. That tends to be universal. But I'll give you a couple. that are becoming more and more popular. Wellness, mental health wellness, which oftentimes, and you can call your insurance broker to find out, a lot of employee assistance programs offer counseling, especially during times like these for people. Financial wellness is becoming a real hot topic where employers are sponsoring financial literacy, how to save money, how to create better 401k and things like that. A lot of people are seeing positive on that. And we also have a number of employers who years ago would have done something like say, hey, if you'd like to put $25 a paycheck away, we'll donate it for you to the United Way. Well, businesses now facilitate that in a different way. They say, we'll allow you to donate pre-tax dollars to any nonprofit you want to. And many go further now. They offer a day or two a year, paid days, to go volunteer for employees to volunteer at their favorite nonprofit organization. And that's really meaningful, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to add 2 more vacation days. Make it meaningful for people. Say, we just want to hear what you want to do and where you volunteered. And people volunteer at these wonderful organizations and come back with great stories. That creates an environment that's real positive, and that's a real inexpensive benefit to implement.
That's awesome.
Yeah. There's so many things going on right now, and it's just not one thing. You can't wave your wand and say this one thing will make you do everything right. There's just so many different techniques, and it depends on location, industry, type of business you have, type of culture you want, the type of leaders you have or want. Those are the types of things we look for.
But that's what you facilitate, is helping to figure out culture and brand and how we can keep our employees happy, right?
That's it. That's the name of the game.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everybody, for participating today. Do you have anything else you want to say, Eric?
Thank you all very much. Would be happy to talk to you on a free call. So there's the link is at the bottom. Happy to do that.
Great. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.